Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar for the BMI Milestone 1 Proof of Concept process. I'm Will Whitney, and I have Kuvu with me. He's our VP of Operations and our production manager, so he knows everything about M1s and will be my co-host today to help give some color to the process. Hello, Ku.
Hey, Will.
All right, let's get right into it. Purpose for today is to define and describe the BMI testing process. Yes, this is only about our process. We can't speak to other people's processes and whatnot. Everyone has their own unique way. This is ours, so we're just going to focus on that. And we're going to illustrate why a proof of concept is essential to digitization projects, why you should be looking for these and asking about them when you're researching companies to potentially work with. Because we're assuming if you reach out to us, we're not the only ones you're reaching out to. You're going to be talking to other folks as well. You should be asking about their testing process to make sure you get the best results for the project you possibly can. Nuts and bolts. First, please raise your hand if you can hear me. You should be able to little toggle thing on the right side of your screen. Okay, thank you. Please raise your hand. You can put it down again and then raise it again if you can see my screen, which you should see a screen that says nuts and bolts. Okie dokie, excellent. You're muted and not on video, so use the QA or Q&A tool also on that right-hand thing. There should be a little button that says Q&A. If you have questions, ask those along the way. If I see them, I'll try to get to them as we're going. I might not see them right away, but we have time at the end for questions, so I'll make sure to get any if they pop up throughout the webinar here. We'll make sure we get to them, but go ahead and add them whenever you have the question. All right. So first, we're going to just describe, what is a milestone 1? In our world, in BMI's world, we just started calling it the milestone 1. It's like the first step of a real project. So we refer to it as the M1 actually, but the full term is milestone 1. And what it is a proof of concept where we use the build, test, refine method, which we'll go into a little bit of the different parts of that. But it's basically getting a small sampling of your project done and approved by you before moving on with the bulk or the main part of your digitization project. The purpose is to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're agreeing on what we've delivered to you so that you agree it's right, we agree it's right, there's nothing weird that came up, or if it did come up, we can talk about that and figure out what to do. But to make sure we're all on the same page before we go forward and do a months-long project or scan hundreds of thousands of records, and then you say, whoa, that's not what I wanted. So we use the build, test, refine method, but it's basically a testing of your project before we go into the main part of it. Ku, is there anything besides that you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the point that this is essential to the project. The milestone really helps us build and refine our parameters for the job, helps us iron out any kinks that we may find. So the M1 is kind of a representation of the entire job, so that when we run it from the beginning of the process flow all the way to the end of the process flow, we can test and actually deliver some portion of it so that you can test in your resting environment too, to make sure that it is what you're getting from us. And it gets all the stakeholders into one place where we can make an agreement that this is what we're ultimately going to deliver.
Yep. And Ku mentioned a few words that we'll cover here. If you heard some things or anything, what's that? We'll get to those in a second. But that's the milestone in a nutshell. And we may just refer to it as the M1 going forward. So first, and just remember, build, test, refine. It's kind of the triangle that we're basing this off of. But the first step, which is part of the build process, is creating the job order for what we call process flow. And it's called the handoff, or I call it the handoff in this sense, because there's the whole beginning part of a project, which is, let's say you're working with one of our salespeople. There's the creating a scope of work, looking at the materials, having discovery questions, finding out what you want, what system you have, what materials you have, what the end result you're looking for, creating a scope of work, a contract, all that stuff that goes into just getting a project off the ground, like to even be viable to start. That's all prior to this step. Then becomes the actual project execution. So the handoff in this sense is sales handing off to production internally at BMI. It's all kind of background to you. Like you're not in there telling our production people what to do. Your salesperson, your account executive is taking what they put together with you, that scope of work, which is sort of it's more customer facing. Yeah, there's gonna be some technical language and some specifics of what we're doing, but contract and scope of work, a lot of that is um, less technical than when our team, what they're going to do with it. So it's kind of a client facing document that then our salesperson will go into our system and create the production ready version of that scope of work for Ku and his team to then execute. So that's the handoff between sales and production. And the first step is in our, we call our Unity system. We have a lot of different applications. It's a home built system. And part of that is our scope of project, or SOP, application. So our salespeople will go into Unity and then they'll create a new scope of project, SOP. We call it scope of work now, but this was made, the SOP was a while back. We used to call it scope of projects. That's why it's SOP, not standard operating procedures, which most people think of when they hear SOP. Be that as it may, they go in there, they're going to create a new SOP and then add all the details, again, translating from the sort of higher level language that will be on a contract to the, okay, this is for BMI people to execute. So this is just the first page, kind of a little template, a little wizard that they'll start typing, like the SOP name, who's the salesperson, PO numbers if there's a PO involved, all that kind of stuff. And then they'll get to the actual service lines. Now, this is an actual, it's one of the ones I did a while back, but this is an actual SOP that was submitted, and then Ku's team worked on it. So we include things like Salesforce opportunity. We use that to keep track of clients and projects and whatnot. So there has to be an approved opportunity, and we include that in the SOP. We classify security levels for material 1 through 4, basically. There's milestone information. That's actually what we're talking about today. So we'll include how's the milestone going to be relayed to the client, who's going to take care of it, so on and so forth. And then all the details about the actual project itself. So this was a microfiche scanning project. We specify types, formats, resolution, can we subcontract, pricing. This was a smaller project, so it's just a flat rate. How we're going to deliver the materials. So this PDFs, how we're going to index, all those details that are a little bit inside baseball, like on a contract. You're just going to say, hey, we're going to scan your microfiche, you're going to get PDFs, we're going to deliver on USB, kind of high level encapsulation. This is where it gets nitty gritty to describe what our project manager is going to do to create the process flow. Ku, any comments so far on this process?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of your comment that this is essentially a translations list from the sales executive to the production team on how to create, or what it is that we're creating for the customer. Then we, as the project design and the project management team, will go and review this documentation and kind of build the process flow to make all the necessary changes and adjustments we need to make whatever the deliverable is that it will be. And it also details how we're delivering it, how we're shipping the materials back, and tracking your materials within the system so that we have methods of knowing where the material and the project is as a whole.
Yeah, and even this process itself is a process. So when a salesperson goes in and creates an SOP, it goes through an approval where there will be someone that reviews what they send in. It says, hey, there's an SOP ready for approval. They'll go in, review these things, bounce them off, or compare them to the Salesforce opportunity, which the sales approval process, opportunity approval process, is its own process as well. Not getting into heavy detail, but basically there's an approved opportunity, and the approver of the SOP will verify, does the actual SOP match what was approved at the sales review meeting, basically. Let's say it does. Okay, are all the line items here? Are there attachments? Like, is the contract attached? Things of that sort. And then once the approver clicks approve, then it actually goes to another step where Ku, our EVP and head of software, Brad Gilbert, and then our Sacramento production manager, and then our senior our senior project manager, basically our milestone architect. She does the majority of the milestone creation. Those four will meet every Wednesday, and they will review SOPs that have been pushed through. And they will often catch things that the approver missed. Like, hey, you approved this thing down here, like it said you approved this project, but on the opportunity it said subcontracting no. Why do you have yes? And it's a discussion. Or maybe Ku notices something like the pricing's wrong, or the salesperson added something that wasn't approved and it has to be flagged and redone, things like that. But we have these processes to make sure we're creating the right project for both you and also the BMI team, that we're getting what we need out of it while we're building this process flow. So the whole process to even get the M1 through and approved and started on. But let's say that's all done. This was approved. Ku's teams approve it. And now it's on our milestone board, which we track, our project tracking board, that then our milestone architect will work on to build multiple process flows. Now, the actual process flow. So using this information, our milestone architect, she will then create an actual process flow. This is a real process flow. The name's changed, so you don't see who the client is, but this actually was a milestone, a security level 3 microfilm scanning project, and there are, I don't know, 20, 25 or so steps in it. So what she did, and once this was approved, it got pushed through all those processes and those approval procedures. Then she has it on her board saying, here's an M1 you need to work on. And then Ku's team will scan, let's say this was Ku was this, like 3,000 rolls or something, let's pretend. Assuming it's one document type, so they're all the same type of microfilm, he'll take maybe 5 or 10 rolls and say, use these rolls, we'll scan them, and then use these, project manager, use these to create the process flow. So we'll scan them, and she'll create these steps based on this. And then they'll run that through the entire process to make sure each step works and that the deliverable is actually what you as the client want. Now, this is while the project is going in full. So yes, there's 800 rolls in this step. There's 250 here. There's 420 here. There are exceptions popping up that the project manager will have to review. But basically, they're building the actual steps that will be used for the remaining project once that milestone is approved. Ku, what else on this?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. Is that the project design is for the architect to build the flow that will ultimately be handed off to the project manager to run the production flow. So when you get the milestone 1, you have the assurance that it's already run through the correct process flow that we were going to use for the entire project. So like I said, it helps iron out any kinks that we may find in the milestone process. Any, film quality issues, any keying issues, any labeling issues that might have occurred, that'll help kind of alleviate some of those issues early on, so that we don't have some of those problems as we're going through the project. What we found in our years of doing this is that really does take off the burden on the back end, because it answers a lot of questions up front while we're doing the milestone process. There's more conversations and meetings to be had early on, but you'd rather have those early on in the project than later in the project, where it can cause delays and those things, those types of things. So it's always just better to get them out in the front in the beginning in the milestone process, get them ironed out so that the project can go as smoothly as possible once it's been handed off to the PM.
Yeah, and the kinks that he talks about, we'd always love to have a perfect project where salesperson meets with the client, they say, hey, we have this stuff, we put together a contract, it's approved, we go through the milestone, look at all the materials exactly like everybody thought. There are no surprises. And then M1's approved, then let's say it's again 3,000 rolls. Oh, those 10 rolls were perfect. Let's do the rest of the 2,990, and all those are the exact same, no issues. That's very rarely the case. It happens. And what we'd hope to do is find some of the issues. They're not necessarily issues, just things to adjust to or adapt to. We hope to find those in the M1 if possible, so we can have those discussions and figure out what to do early on. If we don't catch them because it's maybe a really large project and such a small sample size to create the process flow, if they come up later, then we address them then. But things happen like that. Now, A good example, I actually did an M1 3 weeks ago or something like that. And it was a small one. It was like maybe 40 rolls. And I think we scanned two of them for the M1. I think it was rolls, or was it fiche? You know what it was rolls. Yeah. And anyway, the project manager contacted me. Ku was on the email. Basically, there's something where there were images and it was roll scanning, and there was some like green bar on there, or some strip charts. So basically, the project called for us just saying one image per frame. So you get PDFs, and each page is gonna be one little image. But these rolls had, imagine if you had 10, 8.5 by 11 pages like stitched together, literally connected because they're that green bar paper. Well, that affected how we framed the images. And then there was something else too, like some were really, really dark, or they were reverse polarity or something like that. But my project manager brought that up to me. So during the M1, I was able to talk to my client, say, hey, we found this. This is outside of the scope that we talked about, and the pricing set and all that. They didn't even know that was in there. So this is common where the client does not even know what's in their own material. A roll holds 2,500 images. Imagine if you had thousands of those. You're not going to know everything that's on there. It's pretty much impossible. So we discussed it. We talked about, hey, if we do X, we go this way, price stays the same. We don't change it. We can kind of do this, that, and the other, and we just go that way. Or if you want to do this way, and we can adjust the process flow, because that's the key. We're changing the process flow. Might cost a little more. We'll have to figure that out. They decide, no, we rarely look at these. What you showed us already is fine. Not a big deal. Looks good anyway. We'll just go with it as is. So then we'll move forward. But that's exactly what the M1's for, because if we didn't do that, and if we hadn't found it, we may have delivered the entire project of 40 or so rolls, and they would have said, hey, what's with this weird stuff here? So we try to avoid that. Not that it's not going to happen, but it's great to avoid it and just knock it out early, so that when we are done and they receive it, it's not like now we have to have a conversation. Wait, I'm not going to pay you for this. And it's like, all these things get avoided by saying we agree now, boom, we move forward, project's done, everyone's happy. So that's also a critical part of this, not just building the process flow, but having that alignment between BMI and our clients. All right, moving forward, executing the M1. So this is actually going to be just a little overview of how we would actually show you some images of what happens during the M1. It's for examples, microfilm again. So this could be paper projects, book scanning, microfiche, data migration. Any project can have an M1, but it's just an easy way to do it with microfilm. We love microfilm. So here's an example. So let's say we're doing a microfilm scanning project. We have the scope of work. We put an SOP that gets approved. The project manager, the M1 architect, starts building the process flow. Now, Ku's team, kind of in tandem with the project manager creating the process flow, will start parts of the project to get it ready so they can start ingesting the data and actually running it through the process flow. So the first step, one of the first steps, is we're going to take a photograph of the microfilm labels, because we include those in our deliverables, unless the client doesn't want them. But we take pictures, so you can always see that historical context of the label. So boom, we'll take a photograph. We'll barcode them. That ties back to that Unity system where we can track individual roles. So if you have 3,000 roles, we can track where every single individual role is throughout the entire project. So, let's go back to this. We know not just, oh, there's 240 roles here in this process flow step. Ku could tell you this particular role that is tagged with this barcode is in that step. So sometimes, I don't know how many times you've needed that, Ku, or how many times people have asked, but occasionally over many years, I'm sure someone's asked for something like that, and you're like, okay, here it is. I have this, and we can look up based on the index data as well. So it's possible. It's cool. It's a cool tool we created internally to track projects like that. So barcode, that's going to be used not just during the photographing, but also as they scan it. Our operators will then wand them, so we know where they are in the process flow at the actual physical steps as well. This is a densitometer, where we're taking density checks. That's part of setting the calibrations for the machines. So our operator is going to do 3 density checks per roll, beginning, middle, end. So you get an average density. They're also checking for, well, Ku, you describe this. You used to do this. You know it more than I do. So what are they doing here?
So this is the film QA or film prep process. So what we're doing is we're rolling out the film, checking the beginning, middle, and end for just average densitometer readings so that we can get a good scan setting. We have automated processes that will take those scans, those densitometer readings, and create the optimum scanning settings from at the roll scanner for each individual roll. So each individual roll goes through this film prep process, gets their own set of unique scanning modifications, configurations into the machine, and then it takes that configuration and scans that roll to those settings. So this is important to the roll scanning process because it makes the most optimum image quality of all the images of this roll from start to end. So you could have a few images in there that's kind of dark and light and whatever, but we do try to take the average of the density so that you get the most consistent film quality, image quality when you get the scans out of it.
Now they're also checking for damage, splices, things of that sort, right?
That's correct. So, these roles have been handled by humans over the course of multiple years. So they could have been loaded incorrectly, backwards, upside down, mirrored, all of that, all of the scenarios that can be played out. So our operators are making sure that it's scan ready. So checking for, enough leader in the beginning, the right densitometer, if readings, if there's any damage on the film, redox on the film, fog on the film, just noting all those things down so that we have that as a point of reference. And then once they mark it complete, then they can go to the next phase, which is the scanning phase.
Yeah, and a couple projects over the past 6 months, let's say, we'll get hundreds of rolls, thousands of rolls. Again, this could be fiche, this could be paper, whatever. But since we're talking about microfilm, during the prep phase, like getting ready, checking things, operators have said, "Hey, Koo, since he's the production manager, you're gonna go to him. Hey, we found some film and it has vinegar syndrome or something like that, where it's like, first of all, it smells because it smells like vinegar syndrome. Basically, the material is deteriorating." But they'll start prepping it and go, this stuff is some bad film. And then that'll actually trigger, and it may not be during the milestone. I think we may have caught some during milestone or at least one of those projects, but sometimes it's during the main project. But that will trigger our team to talk to the salesperson to then go to the client and say, hey, here's something we found. You have compromised microfilm basically, and we may have to agree on how to move forward and talk about it could be damaged during scanning because that's just what it is. Do you want to scan it? Do you want to send it back? It's already deteriorating. You may lose the data if you don't scan. So all these things happen. But when we find something, we go to our client and have that discussion so that they're aware of these things, not just, hey, we scanned these and they got destroyed. Hope it's okay. Like we want to make sure you are aware of these things, just like anything in like your, I don't know, remodeling a house or something. You'd hope the contractor wouldn't just blast through something without checking with you first. Like you want to know these things so you could at least say, yes, I agree, or, oh, I already know that. Let me do something else. So that's what we're looking out for. So yes, then you go on the scanning. Here's a scanning machine. So the box label, which, this part here, that's going to go with the roll the whole time. But at each step, our operators are going to wand that, scan it so that we know where it is in the process. So before getting the machine, they'll wand that, then they'll put it on the machine and scan the film. Once that's scanned, then it'll go into the post-scan image processing and we'll continue on. But that's just an example of a microfilm M1 of what Koo's team is doing very early on while our M1 architect is actually building the process flow to then push these through the remainder of the steps. So it's all kind of in tandem, sort of, at least in the very beginning. They need to scan something so she has something to work with. Now, oh yeah, here's some post-processing. Thought we were done with that part, but we're not. So here's some post-processing. Here's a strip of microfilm at scan. If it's going to our digital reel hosted system, it would stay like this. If you're getting cropped images like PDFs, TIFFs, JPEG, something of that sort, what we're going to do is actually frame these images. So they start like this. This red frame is what we're going to do so that you receive the image like that. So you don't have all this background stuff, all this border and whatnot. You want the actual image in most cases. So that's part of post-scan processing, one of the steps in the project flow. So you do that, then you move on to naming. You might have roll level, like we took the photograph of the roll label. So we might key it from that. We might name the files that way. Or if you want file level, again, using newspaper microfilm as an example, we might go to the issue date. You might have had image level, like here's an official record where maybe you want to capture every single stamp or something like that. This one would have 2 stamps. We need to capture both. So depending on what you're asking for from that original contract, the salesperson would have put that into the scope of the SOP, which would then be applied to the process flow. So our team, Q's people, would know they're not just choosing, yeah, I think this should be role level. It's going to say you need to capture file level. It's going to be issue date, meaning year, month, day, page, or something like that. It'll be specified of what they're going to do. All part of the process flow to create the full project workflow. So this is the scanning process, again, for film specifically, just for this example. Like we talked about, contract, scope of work. We have to get the microfilm, of course. We're going to tag the transportation containers in our material tracking system, MTS application that's within Unity, so we can track the containers. They're in storage. Once we actually photograph the film labels, then we'll know where every individual role is, because now we're actually prepping the film and tagging them. But we create the job order and SOP. The film prep happens. Then there's scanning, post-scan processing, indexing, delivering the images to you like PDFs or maybe digital reel like we talked about. And then you'll review that M1 with your sales rep, and it'll either be you receive the PDFs, or they do a Zoom with you and show you the JPEGs, or you're looking at DR, digital reel together to get that approval. These steps are part of that M1. Like that's what we're doing to create that process flow. Ku, anything before I move on to the goals of the M1?
Yeah, just wanted to piggyback again on what you said. Those steps are the ones with the asterisks are the ones for the M1s. The first 4 steps are just kind of receiving and beginning of the project processes to let you know that your order's in the house and that we're working on it. But yeah, I think you covered everything else that I wanted to cover. So
Yeah, and what we're saying is, like, of course, these are important. Like, if you're sending us 4 rolls of film for your M1, are we gonna track them and keep them secure storage? Yes, but they're not part of the M1 in the sense like that's part of the process flow of actually running the project. Those are, we have to get them to us first to do this. That's all. But these are the ones that are actually applicable to the process flow itself. All right, goals of the M1. So we're kind of going back to the beginning of what's the point of this whole thing. Build, test, refine. We build the process flow. We test it with actual materials, and then we refine it. So once we create the process flow and test that batch, we're going to review with you. And in most cases, it's going to be your salesperson probably on a Zoom with you, looking at, let's say, digital reel, looking at what we loaded to our system, or showing you a folder file of your PDFs, or maybe we sent you a thumb drive, an encrypted thumb drive that you've opened, and now you're talking with them over, again, maybe over Zoom, and you're looking at the images together to talk about here's what you got delivered. And you're just confirming, is the image quality good? Yeah, that could be based on how's the condition of the original material, but does it come out like it should? Yeah, if it does, great. Is it indexed properly? Are the file outputs, like, is it a PDF? Great. Is it supposed to be a PDF? Yes, it is. Perfect. If it was supposed to be TIFFs and we give you PDFs, well, one, we should have caught that, but maybe it slipped through and you go, whoa, this is supposed to be a PDF. You gave me TIFFs. Oops, we will fix that. But we're trying to catch all this stuff early. Or we may find something that says, hey, you told me these were standard 100-foot length rolls that are simplex, just one image per frame, so like 2,500 images a roll. What you actually sent me were 215 feet rolls of film that are duplex, and these have like 10,000 images a roll. That would be something we would want to point out to you and discuss, because that could possibly change the scope of the project or the pricing or both. So we're finding things too. It's to help us see what we're working with and then chat with you about it, of course. And then once we're all agreed on the same page, things have been tweaked or fixed or everything looks great, then you give us the formal green light, which will typically be an email saying M1 is approved. And then from there, we say, great, maybe we already have some material, the rest of the project in-house, we're ready to scan it, or then we have a pickup set up, or you're sending it, whatever it is. Now we can move forward with the rest of the project. And if we don't find anything that's weird or different, then we just continue on and get you those images. If we do find something, like we said, we'll bring it up. Now, how to be prepared for your M1 is communicate with your account executive, your sales rep, whatever you want to call them. And that means when you get when the project's approved, signed off, everything, you have a contract in place, they should be telling you, but you can also ask now that you know that you've watched this. Hey, how long till my M1? Typically, we say, 3 to 4 weeks is kind of our standard because it depends how many projects we have in house. It could be a couple days if it's really simple. It could be a week or two, but we like to give our team time because usually we have, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so projects kind of in the M1 process. So it just depends on the complexity, the project itself, people's availability to do the M1, all those things that tie in. But communicate with your AE, ask them when they think it'll be done. And if you're anxious, just keep up. Hey, when's that M1 going to be ready? Let me know as soon as give me a week out so I can prepare, things like that. Have a designated point of contact for the M1. It's typically going to be whoever the project contact was. So if you reach out to us, let's say, who's ever watching here, you reach out and you're you're the deputy building official or something at like a building department, you're the university registrar, and you're working with our sales rep throughout the process to get the contract done, to do the material review and all those things, contracting and stuff, at least you're the main person, you're probably going to be the M1 point of contact. However, you may not be, but what we want to know is who's going to be the person that's going to be approving the M1. Maybe it's one person, maybe a group of people want to be on this meeting. The one I mentioned that I did 3 weeks ago, there were, I think, 5 different people on there. Although I had a main point of contact, she wanted to have these other 4 folks on there to provide their comments and opinions and whatnot. So have a designated point of contact and also a backup in case you go on vacation for a week and it happens to be that week that we finished and we're ready to review it with you. Ku's done, well, I don't know how many thousands of projects, but it's a very common thing where our salespeople are saying, hey, get my M1 done. I want to go see my customer. And then he gets it done. And then it sits for a month because either, that person is now not available, or they're shut down for the holidays, or they went on vacation, or they had a health issue and there wasn't a backup and a salesperson can't get a hold of them. All of these things are common, but they can be avoided. You want to get your project done. We've agreed to it. There's a contract. Everyone wants to get it moving. So just be ready to get the M1 approved, or if you're going to be gone, tell your aide, hey, I'm going to be out for the next 2 weeks. I know this thing should be done soon. I CC'd this person over here that you can do it with them. They'll approve this thing once it's ready. So it helps everyone, and it just prevents things from sitting for weeks of, hey, it's ready, silence, silence, silence. 3 weeks later, okay, I looked at it, or I can't get into it, or whatever it is. So you've done a few of these, so I don't know if there's anything else you need to add to that, but it kind of goes into be available.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would add is that you might just want to have your IT department or your folks available for this too. Depending on the type of projects and the security level of these projects, you might need to involve your IT team to help ingest the data that we're going to deliver to you. I understand not everyone's very technical with this stuff, so having the IT department there and available to help you decrypt, encrypt, download, ingest it into whatever final deliverable system that you're going to be using might be helpful. And most of our customers have, when they do these M1 approval meetings, they do it with themselves, but they also have the IT there just in case they're the ones who are going to be loading it into the system and going to be ingesting it. So it just kind of helps move the process along a little faster. And yeah, it's just a buy-in from all parties that whatever we're delivering is whatever you're gonna be using. We want you to be able to use this M1 in whatever its final deliverable state is gonna be, and have a proof of concept that yes, this is how we're gonna use it in the end product. We approve it. BMI, please proceed with production from this point.
Yeah, I was trying to think. There's that project from a couple of years ago, but once you send that, and this is not to be negative or anything, but when you send us that approval, that's what it was like in writing. The team loves having things in writing, so we can always say, well, we did get approval based on what we sent you. But we have had people that say, yeah, it's approved. Then, let's say 7-8 months go by, which deliver, thousands of deliverables every month, tens of thousands of, I think it's Aperture cards or something. And then it's like 8-9 months later, the project's pretty much done. They say, hey, we tried loading this and it didn't work. Now, we delivered exactly what they asked for. We got the M1 approval, but they had not tested their own system. It was nothing with the actual deliverable. It was just their system. And they kind of put a halt on finishing up some stuff. And then I think they actually asked us to kind of tweak some things and re-export, which Of course, we like our clients, we helped them out and did some extra work there. But when you do these, especially if it's a larger project and you get that M1, and if you're loading it to a system that you have, you want to test that because you may say, yeah, I need multi-page TIFFs. That's what my system takes. Maybe. I mean, if your IT people say that's what it is, sure. But even if they say that's it and we deliver that and say perfect, you probably want to actually test it, just confirm, because it's kind of a bummer for everyone if we go through and finish everything and then say, oh, I need you to tweak this and can you just change it to this now? Well, sounds easy, but a lot of times from our side, it's almost a whole project in itself to redo something, or just a small tweak here or there really affects production. So we don't want to get into the back and forth of, oh, now we have to charge you this, it's a whole new product. But it really is. It becomes a weird thing. So it's better just to actually test when you get the M1 and then approve it. Because once you approve it, we can say, well, you approved it. What do you want me to do now? I mean, you said this is it. So we're kind of clean. But anyway, so not trying to be negative, but just keep that in mind. Test what you're receiving to make sure your system ingests it correctly and your people say it works. So that's that. That's it. Pretty quick. I mean, actually, it's one a little longer because these things we could talk about all day. But let me see if there are any questions for a second. No, I don't see any questions. Koo, once again, you just pre-answered everything. No one even has any questions. So that's the M1 process. That's BMI's process. We can't speak to other people's. You'd have to ask them how they do it. But that is BMI's M1 process. If you work with us, if you want to reach out about project or questions about just the process in general or whatever about digitization, here's my email, the simple version. You can also just go to our website, click the get a quote button at the top, and just fill out something. It'll send to an email that we will all get, and we can respond to you. And if you want to get more information, like every 2 weeks we have a newsletter. So every other Tuesday, the next one's going out a week from yesterday. So this coming Tuesday, sign up for the newsletter. Basically, it'll give you the newest blogs, videos, any upcoming webinars, webinar recordings, things of that sort. So if you miss a webinar, you'll still get the recording, links to our YouTube channel, all that stuff. So just hover your phone over the QR code. It'll send you right to the link. Put your email in, and boom, you're on our newsletter list. That is it. Thank you for joining, Koo. I appreciate the additional info. Thank you for joining, everyone, and have a great rest of your Wednesday.